Are we live? Can y'all hear me? How we doing? How we feeling? Let me just get the stream links everywhere. Hit me in the chat if you can hear me. I think my levels are good. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes and we can get started with VNet peering, a very important subject to know. Winter Mute 782, good evening. I want to make sure the music is not too loud, so let me know if it is too loud or if my voice is too low. I can make all those adjustments before diving into everything that we're talking about. I like the topic that we're going to be talking about tonight, virtual network peering. It's such a simple concept to understand, and once you do understand it and you can see how it works, it's going to be one of those things in your toolkit that you're going to want to integrate or utilize or at least know about for so many different scenarios, right? So yeah, I'll give it a few more minutes to get people to join, and then we could get started. Someone said turn the music up just a little bit. There we go. A little more, oh my goodness. I don't want it to be that loud. Alright, in the chat, let me know what's your experience with Azure. Just so I can kind of have a feel for how much I have to like break down every concept as we go through them. For what it's worth, I love seeing you and more people in general stream this kind of thing. Yeah. I feel like cloud computing is still, in terms of content, in terms of beginner-friendly content, it's still very niche. There's not many people doing it, and it might just be because the field doesn't have too many newbies. It's still very much in a position where software development was like years ago, where it was just people with experience who kind of just transitioned over. So that's why you see a lot of network people, a lot of software devs who learn cloud and then they transition over and they take all the cloud roles. So yeah, I figured, you know, why not start a trend or something with beginner-friendly content for cloud computing. I'm gonna give it to 8:05, 8:10 maybe, and then we get going. Boris says woot woot. Hey Boris. I was a traditional dev who transitioned to cloud and SRE, and I love it. SRE is if I didn't work in cloud, if I didn't work in a specific like cloud role, SRE was my next role that I wanted to. Just because I think it's so cool. You're basically like kind of like a firefighter. Like you're always fixing something or saving something, or you're making sure you're set up, or your organization is set up in a way that you don't have to, you know, fix fires and such. So yeah, SRE is one of those they're kind of like new, not really new, but it's more like people are just starting to understand what an SRE actually is. So yeah, I think SRE and cloud are two of those new positions where people start to realize like you don't have to be a software developer, you don't have to code like for your entire profession. So it's neat. It's like you're a firefighter and Indiana Jones all at once. Yeah. So I have a few SRE friends, and the amount of tools that they know about is, I think it's a lot more than what you would know as a typical software dev or as like a cloud engineer. Just because you see scenarios that are so specific to whatever it is that you're working on or whatever it is that the company you work at does. So you have like these niche things, these niche solutions, these niche tools and skill set to like be able to specifically fix one issue, right? It's very, very intriguing. So yeah, I agree with that description. All right, let's kind of dive into the material before it gets too late for people. I don't know if people have a curfew or a bedtime, but I definitely don't like staying up too late. All right, so I don't know how new people who are on the stream are to Azure, but you have the concept of a virtual network. If you're familiar with AWS, I think they're called VPCs. So you have your subscription, which is kind of like your unique unit of billing. And then inside of your subscription, you can have various resources, right? But your core component of your network, if you want to start building out your network, you're going to need a virtual network, right? So think of it as like a little slice of the cloud just for you. And inside your virtual network, you'll have subnets to partition out your virtual network. And then inside of your subnets, you're going to have resource groups. And with a resource group, that's how you would deploy your solutions per lifecycle. Well, ideally per lifecycle. I've seen people do it other ways, but ideally you would have your solutions deployed into resource groups per lifecycle, and those solutions belong to subnets, and those subnets belong to a virtual network, right? So you have your virtual network. Now, you can have multiple virtual networks per subscription, and depending on, you know, how many you need, like personally I only have one because I'm not doing nothing complex inside of like my own personal Azure. But subscription or VNets aren't necessarily made to talk to each other, even if they're in the same subscription or they're cross subscription, cross region, because they're meant to be private, right? So that's where the concept of virtual network peering comes into. It's like, okay, so how do we find a way to, with low latency, and with like the, I guess, least minimal setup, how do we get these things to talk about? So that's what a VNet peer is. Yeah. So whenever I tell people to like learn something in terms of Azure, or whenever I'm asked to recommend resources, I always tell them to go to the Learn modules, the Microsoft Learn, and that's what I've got pulled up here, and this will be in the description of the video. Hold on, I need some tea. So you can really just, it says it's going to take you about 42 minutes. You can kind of follow this through yourself, and it really has everything you need. I'm probably going to walk through something very similar with the documentation, but let's close that for now. So after I tell them to go look for these Learn modules, right, I tell them, hey, why don't you take a look at like the actual Microsoft documentation, which is the second, well, probably the first best place to get information in terms of Azure or learning or tutorials or quick starts or like a bunch of theory. It's all in the documentation. In my opinion, it's pretty well organized. You know, you're gonna find errors, of course, but it's pretty well done. And like I said, they have tutorials. So what we're going to do is probably just follow this one, and I'll explain these concepts as we go. And we'll get two VNets to peer to each other, right? So let me get this going, I guess. Let me see what I have in terms of virtual networks. I don't think I have any. I think I spent yesterday on stream kind of just cleaning up the Azure, this Azure subscription. But yeah, Exam Pro says yellow. What's up, Andrew? Okay, so let's see what this thing, how do I switch this to dark mode? I thought they had a, here we go. There we go. I should have done that before. My bad. Yeah, but their screenshots are still in not dark mode. All right. All right, so at the beginning of your most tutorials, it kind of tells you what you're going to go through. So here we're going to create two virtual networks, configure the peering, and then deploy a virtual machine into each virtual network, and then get those two to be able to communicate. In these cases, we'll probably just get them to ping. That's probably what they're going to ask us to do, because it's like the easiest thing to do. I'm just going to skim through this before we actually go into it. Peering. Communicate. Yeah. So we need to make utilize a new firewall rule to enable like the ping. So yeah, we're gonna, yeah. Yep. See, I knew it. All right. The chat is pretty quiet today. It was a lot more lively yesterday. Alright. So let's get started. We need to log into Azure. I'm already logged in. Create virtual networks. We need to select networking, create one on the IP address. Enter 10. Okay, and then 1. For the other space, click add. Okay. So let's create one. And we're going to keep it in here. We're going to create a new resource group. And we're going to call it, what should we call it? VNet peer demo resource group. And we can call this VNet 1. USC. In terms of settings, this is pretty straightforward. Subscription is, you know, the unique unit of billing that you could utilize inside of your Azure. I have 2, but I'm going to stick to this Microsoft Azure sponsorship. Your resource group is what's going to contain all the resources. And remember, I said at the beginning, ideally you would want to utilize a resource group per the life cycle of the solution that you're deploying. Right, so if it's like a development one, if it's a demo one, if it's a production one, you would put it in a resource group that reflects that, and that way, when you're done with it, you can just erase the entire resource group. And then we have the instance details, and then the instance, which is the name and the region. US East 2 works best for me, so that's what I'm selecting. So now it asks us to set the networking options, and the tutorial tells us this is probably the default. /16, yeah, and then we need to create a subnet. It already has the default subnet. So remember, your address space is going to be the entire range of IPs that you can utilize for your virtual network. And then we're already creating a default subnet, so it's going to be a slice of that space that you have for the subnet. And we could create another one, but this one's only asking us for the default one. But let me just double check. Okay. Sweet. So now we can just hit review and create. Actually, I'm going to add some tags in here. Just put this dev, because tags let me easily delete stuff later. I can search by tag. And we'll create. Okay, cool. That's creating. We probably need to create another one with very similar settings, except the spaces should be different. So let's see here. And then that's been created. So we see we have the resource group VNet peer demo dash resource group with, and then this VNet has the address space that we declared there. It's in the East US 2. And then if we go to subnets, we'll see that default subnet with the space that we defined in there too. Oh, well, it was given to us by default anyway. And that's pretty much it in terms of that. We're going to need to go into peering in a second, but let's create the next virtual network. Put this into, does it ask us for a different resource group? No, it says to put it in the same one. Okay. So here we call this VNet 2. East US 2, yes. Address space. So this might be defined already. 10.1.6. Yes, and then the default is, yeah. Alright. And next tags. Okay, cool. So this is going to deploy. So now we have 2 virtual network spaces, and with each one has 1 subnet in it, and the address ranges do not overlap, and that's important because. So let me open up the other. Actually, we'll use this one. So we see we have this address space, right? And we can actually open up the other one in another tab. VNet 1. Okay. And then we have this address space for VNet 1. If these were the same, you would not be able to peer them. And then when you think about why that is, it's because clearly you're going to have resources inside of those VNets that have the same IP addresses. And that's going to cause some chaos. So you can't peer VNets if they have the same address space, or if the address space are overlapping in some way, right? So it's important to keep that those different. All right. So now it's probably going to tell us to, in the begin typing, and then we have to peer. Okay. So let's go to 1, and then we'll go into peering. And then we'll add this in here. So we'll call this VNet 1 to VNet 1. Can we contain underscores? Number or underscore. VNet 2, VNet 2, peer. That's just the name. And then what other settings does it ask us? Name, subscription, virtual network, name of the peering from, okay. We can close this one here. Virtual network is the one that we want to peer to, and it kind of makes it easy unless you have several VNets. But here it says cannot be peered with this itself, and the only option it gives us is VNet 2. And the cool thing about, I don't know if this is probably the same in every cloud, but when you create the peer from VNet 1, or so from a VNet to another VNet, so let's call it VNet 1 to VNet 2, it automatically allows you to configure the VNet from the way back. So from the peering from the way back. So VNet 2 back to VNet 1. So that's what we got to create here. It says name of the peering from VNet 2 to VNet 1. So we're going to call it VNet 2 to VNet 1 peer. And configure virtual network settings, allow virtual network access from VNet 1 to 2 enabled, and then the same thing from VNet 2 to VNet 1 enabled. I don't think we need to configure anything else. We're not doing anything with gateways or, right? Okay. So the options that were below, I should explain them. Anyway, the options that were below are for more advanced. I have those actually in a note that I could show you while this peer happens. So if we look at, I think it's in the VNet peer section, or yeah, so we had the options allow forwarded traffic, allow gateway transit, and then use a remote gateway. And you can all take a look at this. We don't really have to go into it because we're not configuring these settings. But as usual, my Notion notes, I'll put it in the description box. As whenever I update something that I'm studying for the AZ303, I put it in here. So you can take a look at that. Okay, I think that created virtual network peering. Yeah. So if we open, we should have kept the other one open. All right. So you see in peerings, we have VNet 1 to VNet 2 peer. And then if we take a look at VNet 2, and then we go into the peering, we have VNet 2 to VNet 1 peer, right? So we only had to set up the peer in one of these settings in order for it to work for the other VNet as well, right? Okay, so now we probably have to create a VM, create two VMs, one for each VNet, and then see how they at first can't talk to each other. Well, no, they will definitely be able to talk to each other. But after doing some settings, or configuring some settings, they'll be able to talk to each other. All right, so let's keep going. The peering status is connected. Did it say connected? Yeah. Cool. All right, so now let's create a VM. Yeah, Andrew Brown is he's famous. He's one of my famous friends. Alright, we're gonna put this in VNet peer. Call this VM01. East US 2, that's fine. I don't need any of these additional settings. Let's use one that we can RDP into, so probably like data center. Yeah. And whatever the cheapest one is, $170. Oh, it's so expensive. All right, let's do this $85 one. Let's create some credentials. I won't dive too deep into the virtual machine settings. We could save that for a different stream or video. VNet peer demo. All right, cool. And that should be fine. So that's VM01 or VM1. What did I call it? VM01. All right, so let's do the same thing to deploy it to the other one. So this, we will have to make you famous next. Huh. All right, let's see here. That should have gone. Oh, I didn't select the correct virtual network, but it should have defaulted to the first one. Let's take a look. I could be wrong, and then we have to configure it. It's in. Where is it in? Where is VNet 1 default? Yeah. So it defaulted there. Okay, so as long as we put the next VM into the correct VNet, we should be fine. So we'll call this VNet peer VM02. That's fine. We'll put it into here. Nope, wrong one. We're doing Data Center 2016. Alright, cool. So now let's go into networking, and then in here we need to make sure we're putting it into VNet 2, default subnet. Everything else should be fine. Yeah, we don't need any of this. Review plus create. Great, great. Alright, so we've got our two VNets. We've got default subnets in each VNet. we're making sure that the IP address spaces aren't overlapping. We've got a VM01, which is in our VNet 1, and then our VM02, which is in our VNet 2. Right. So now we're going to RDP into both of them, and then we're going to ping, and they're going to be able to talk to each other. And then I'm going to disconnect the peer, and then we're going to see that they won't be able to talk to each other. We probably could have done it the other way too, but I didn't think of that before. All right. So let's go to the resource and just make sure it is in the right VNet. Where VNet 2 default. Okay. So now, I guess we could start with. Hold on. Okay, so let's connect with this one. RDP into here. And we'll just use the credentials that I created. Oh, why doesn't it resize? Or will it resize after it loads? Alright, let's give it a second to. Then we'll do the same for VNet 2. Let's get the RDP file. Let's hit connect. Also, this is terrible security practices allowing RDP to be open. But for port 3389 open, but for demo purposes, it's fine. Plus, I'm going to erase these after. I know there's it says ping is used with the for the blah blah blah, which is denied through. All right, looks like we need to use this in VM1. We need to execute this PowerShell command. Is anyone out there a Windows admin? Come on, why is this not working? PowerShell. I wonder if I need to run this as administrator. We'll do it just for the sake of. I usually limit RDP from my IP only. Yeah, so ideally you would have your VMs only having a private IP. Well, not in most scenarios. You'll have your VMs have only private IP addresses, no public IPs. And then you would limit per IP or per IP range the devices or end users that can connect to a VM. Cool. So do I need to enable it on both ends? I don't think so, right? It says I can now ping it. Is that the correct IP address though? So let's take a look. Yeah, so its private IP is 10.1.0.4, so I should be able to ping it. But it's telling me I need to connect to my VM2 VM, enter the following command from a command prompt to the my VM1. Oh, on the my VM1. Okay. So now we need a command prompt. This doesn't need to be admin, right? Doubt it. Okay, so now I should be able to do ping 10.1.0. What is this? Oh, interesting. Is this gonna launch an RDP session inside of it? Wow. It's a little bit too much, right? Alright, cool. So this is VM2, right? Yeah, so you see we're on 10.1.0.4, but from VM1. So the peer works, right? Now, we're going to close this. And then go back into... Oh, gosh, why did it close the whole thing? Okay, let's go back into VM1. Oh, wrong. What I want to do is ping it, not open up a full RDP session. At my previous job, we had a Windows servers, I think 2008. Oh my gosh. It was the worst. I have OCD with the warning boxes, must click the checkbox. Okay, so we're doing CMD. Wow, this thing is super slow. Okay. So yeah, now I should be able to do ping 110 dot, was it 0 dot, no, what was it? What was the IP address? I can't remember. 10.1.0.4. 10.1.0.4. And yeah, we get a reply. So that works fine. Now, we could do... Should I log on to VM2 and then ping? Or should I remove the peer just to make sure it actually is the peer that's working? Let's log into 2. Wait, what are we in right now? This is VM2. It says it's cause of direct X through RDP. So I am on VM2. And that means I should be able to ping VM1, right? 10.0.0.4. Yeah, which it was open. Alrighty, cool. Alright, so now what we're gonna do is just close that out. We're gonna keep one open. Oh, what? What happened? Oh my goodness, was that an RDP within an RDP? That's funny. Maybe that's why it was so slow. Okay. So what we're gonna do is now try to remove the peer and see what happens. So let's go into networking. Let's go into VNet 1. Let's go into peers and let's click this one. Can I disable allow virtual network? So we're gonna just disable these both here and then hit save. So now I shouldn't be able to ping from VM1 to VM2 unless I have to restart everything for it to apply. But I doubt it. So now what are we on? VM1. So now we could do ping.10.4. Goodness, someone remind me of the IP of the VM2's IP. 10.1.0.4. My bad. Okay. 10.1.0.4. Okay, so now it's not working. Good stuff. Obviously, since we disconnected the peer, it's not working, which makes sense. Cool. Yeah, I definitely need a... It's time for a second monitor. Do a continuous ping and reconnect. I just closed the RDP. Alright, let's do it then. Tell me the command for continuous ping, so I don't have to Google it. -T? Okay, cool. Is it just like ping IP -T? So I would do ping 10.1.0.4 and then -T like that? Or ping before like that? Okay, so I guess I could keep that like that. And then we'll turn the peer. Am I in the networking? VNet. No, we need to go to VNet 1. Here. Enabled. Save. See, I'm glad you made me try this. This is exciting. I wouldn't have tried this if this wasn't suggested, so thank you, Boris. Okay, so in theory, this should work, right? Oh, hold on. I forgot to turn that one on. My bad. Okay, we've enabled everything that we disabled. So you're right, in theory this should work. Let's try it again. What? Interesting. Is the setting still applying? VNet 1 to VNet 2 peer. It says it's connected. You know what? Maybe I got the IP wrong. 10.1.0.4. Yeah. So we're on VM1 and we're trying to ping VM2. I don't understand. Let's see. Yeah, VM2 is still definitely up. We can RDP into it. Oh, hold on. Oh, darn it. What is the clear screen? There we go. Okay. Let's try pinging the other way around. Ping. What is it? 10.0.0.4? Alright, so the other way where it works. Ping 10.1.4.0. Is that this IP? VM2. 10.1.0.4. Hold on. Okay. That was... I put the wrong IP address. But I swear I didn't do it last time. Oh, hold on. I don't want to do that. Ping 10.1.0.4. Come on. Alright, let's look at the peer again. Allow virtual network access from VNet 1 to VNet 2, enabled. Allow forwarded traffic from VNet 2 to VNet 1, enabled. Yeah, so let's think about this. I was able to ping before. We got the peer set up. We pinged from VM1 to VM2. Totally fine. Then we turned the peer off. And then we tested that we couldn't ping. That's expected. Then we turned it back on. And we can ping from... And we enabled all the settings here. We enabled from VNet 1 to VNet 2 and then VNet 2 to VNet 1. So we can ping from VM2 back to VM1. But not from VM1 back to VM2. So that's where we're at right now. And I don't think, well, why would we have to check any firewall settings? On VM2. Alright. No, because we were able to do it, we were able to ping before without any changes. So that's what I'm interested in. Check firewall on VM, whichever you cannot ping. Check firewall on VM2. So again, remember we can ping from... Did I lose everyone? What happened? Sorry, it cut off for a minute. I don't know what happened. It says, when did the ping stop working? After pairing? After dropping the peer. Okay, so we peered, we would ping fine. We pinged from VM1 to VM2 and from VM2 to VM1. Then we cut the peer off and then we tried pinging just to verify that it wasn't going to work and it didn't work. Then we turned the peer back on and now we can peer from we can ping from VNet 2 from VM2 to VM1, but we can't ping VM1 to VM2. So that's where we're at right now. Do a non-pig. My I think my internet is like having issues today. They were doing repairs or something. But I'm glad this thing reconnected. Okay. So it says do ipconfig on non-pingable VM. Let's make this smaller. What are we looking at on IP config? That's so interesting. It's 10.1.0.4. And then that's the exact thing, 10.1.0.4 that we're pinging. Let's take a look again at the peer. Oh, hold on. So in the peer from VNet 2, I don't think we changed this back to what it should have been. So this is probably what was happening. What? Come on. So we enabled. This is VNet 2 to VNet 1. And let's just double check the first one again. Yeah, this is all enabled. Why is it still timing out? That makes no sense. Because I go here, can I still ping the other one? Enabled. VNet 2 to VNet 1, enabled. So we have 10.0.0.4, and then we have 10.1.0.4. So from 10.1.0.4, we can ping 10.0.0.4, which is VM1. And just to validate that the IP is correct, we have here that we're on VM2, which has 10.1.0.4. But if we take a look at VM1, IP config, we have 10.0.0.4, and then if we try to ping 10.1.0.4, it times out. That's interesting. Says, did you get to look at the firewall? The firewall on the level of the VM or on the other way around? On like the actual here on the Azure portal. Maybe we have to do this again. Let's see. After the peer, after we removed and then re-added the peer. Oh wait, that's PowerShell, my mistake. Oh, goodness. Erase. No. Alright, so now let's try it. What was it again? 10.1.0.4? Goodness gracious, come on. Alright, let me look. I could have gotten the IP wrong, so. .1.0.4. Control panel in the VM that you can't ping. Alright, so for those saying, I added this firewall rule. Do I have to add it on VM this one? Again, keep in mind that we can ping VM1 from VM2, but again, I'll add this. There it is. And then just to make sure, we'll ping 10.0.0.4. Okay, it works both ways. So what's interesting is we set that firewall rule on VM1. We established a peer, set it on VM1, and then we were able to do it both ways. Drop the peer, and then we were able to only do it from VM2 to VM1. Interesting. My internet, I think, keeps dropping in and out. So someone says, yeah, that's what's bizarre. So if you remove the rule when you, so it removes the rule when you drop the peer. No, it can't and it won't. Maybe it was missed the first time. Service can't control OS level. But it was working fine. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name, but yeah, it was working fine at the beginning. So then when we dropped the peer, it stopped working. So yeah, I don't know. That was interesting, but that was a nice little, I think it was a nice little lesson to be learned. I think it was the confusion with RDP. What do you mean? What does that mean? That was a nice little lesson, though. Alright, let's see what else this says here. In a later step, ping is used to communicate with VM2 from the VM1. This is... Yeah, so even the documentation tells you to enable it on VM1. And then we had to, after dropping the peer, we use the same PowerShell command on VM2, which is interesting. Cool. Cool stuff. Alright, so we're about to hit the 1 hour mark. Typically I stream for like an hour or so. What's the command? Can you paste? Yeah, it's just this firewall, this PS firewall. Yeah, you can check the description, the link to the documentation that I followed is there. That's fine. Thank you all for your help. That was I'm pretty sure I've done this before. I've just never had ran into any issues like that. So it's interesting. But yeah, I think networking in terms of the AZ303 is covered pretty heavy. So I'll have to dive a little bit deeper into understanding networking. Some things in here. Glorious leader. Would VNet peering work in the North Korean IP space? Wow. I don't know. Oh gosh. Glorious leader. That's funny. Would VNet peering work in the... I should screenshot that. That's funny. Alright, people. That was a nice little... I'm glad we figured it out before the hour ended. Same time tomorrow. Yeah, I might do it a little... I don't know how to figure out a time that works for more people. Like, nights work great for me, but I'm willing to put it in the middle of the day, maybe like a 6 o'clock kind of thing. But I don't know. Stay tuned to the Twitter, to the LinkedIn, and we'll see what we cover tomorrow. I think I want to do a lot more monitoring stuff tomorrow because that's covered heavy in the 303 as well. But yeah, we'll see. All right, people. I'm selfish. I'm in the East Coast at work all day. Yeah. I'm in the East Coast too. And it's starting to get darker earlier, so it kind of feels like a natural thing to just sit in front of the computer around this time. But again, I'm looking for times that work for the majority of people. But yeah, this learning in public is kind of it's like super vulnerable because you have people critiquing how you work, and then if you make a mistake, people say like, oh, it must have been missed. Yeah, but I have no issue with making mistakes in public. It says, good job. See you tomorrow. Yusuf, thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow at some time. Don't know when. Just stay posted to Twitter. It's fun and motivating. We all make mistakes. Yeah, definitely. That's why I'm not like afraid to make mistakes or anything. Because whatever success I've accomplished, I've done it through being like completely transparent and completely honest with like what I can and what I can't do. So it's worked out for me. Plus, we gotta get rid of that stigma that it's like all engineers, we know everything that's going on. We know we're so great at everything and we don't Google stuff. But yeah, alright, I'm gonna start ranting, so I'm gonna hop off. Thank you everyone for tuning in. As always, at Made by GPS on Twitter if you want to chat. And we will talk sometime tomorrow.